Hi, welcome to this call. My name is Kelly Mountain. I'm with Goddess Modern, and today in this video, I'm going to be exploring different topics having to do with an area of life that's immensely powerful, if not the most powerful areas of our life, having to do with sexuality and pleasure, sensuality, intimacy, and relationships. So thank you so much for your time in being here and for coming on this little journey with me in these very, very nuanced, complex, very deep topics. So that's probably one reason why these topics are really appealing for me, is because my personality type really loves highly nuanced, complex, deep, even sometimes taboo topics. And my personality type is also very investigative. I really enjoy researching and understanding more about what are all of the different puzzle pieces that come together to create this kind of experience in life. And through it all, what's the message? What's the purpose? What's the reason? What's the gift? What's the blessing? And sometimes these things comes in form of joy, and sometimes these things come in forms of pain. And so I especially am fascinated with exploring the topic of sexuality and intimacy, pleasure, sensuality, arousal, all of these things, because talk about complex. It's really the aspect of life where it's like all of our complexity merges together in a really potent way that then influences and determines various outcomes that we experience in this part of our lives. And so I'm also just fortunate and grateful and, just feel really blessed that I get to actually build this into a career where I can create the space for others to explore this part of themselves as well, and potentially receive some support, some guidance, some healing in these areas of life if they feel like they need it. So the reason that I am doing this call is, I was prompted to do this call because I recently put out this Instagram story and was asking people's different levels of interest regarding hearing from me on these different topics, and there was a lot of people that came through for this specific realm of life. And so I wanted to take it a step further. I was like, oh gosh, I'm so interested to hear from people about more specifically, what are the little bits and pieces in there that are especially of interest, or areas that a person's wanting to know more about or develop more about. So I see that there's already some people here on the call, and so I would love to open the space and invite you forward. In a sense, I want us to come together. Before I do that, before I fully open it, I want us to kind of come together in this way. Imagine almost as if we're metaphorically huddling around the campfire together, right? We're going to sit down with our cup of tea and we're just going to talk and share, and just for the simple joy of exploration and curiosity, and to learn. There's this way that when we hear other people speak and when we hear their stories, their questions, sometimes it's relatable. We can really receive a lot from being in communication with each other. So, just calling us in to get cozy and all snuggled around the campfire together. I actually lit a candle on my altar for all of us right now, and just wanted to open the space of authentic sharing and vulnerability and curiosity, and a space where it's okay for us to not be perfect. There's no expectations of saying the right thing and having the right answer and being fully self-realized in this part of life. This is a place where we get to just kind of in a sense, with the campfire metaphor, or like a cauldron metaphor is another one I really like, kind of just like putting all the ingredients in the cauldron and let's just see what kind of brew we create together, right? And so I'll say to you really quick before opening up the conversation, is that I feel like a big part of my work in these realms is really helping people to redefine what their definition is of things like sensuality and pleasure. So most of us have inherited a definition that tells us something along the lines of we get to experience these things when we're behind closed doors, either with ourselves or with another person. And it's just in these very specific kind of moments of life where it's something sexual is happening. And that's when we get to experience sensuality and pleasure. And so part of why I'm here is to help greatly expand our definitions of sensuality and pleasure to encompass all of life. It's not a thing we do, it's a way that we live, It's not this thing we do for 15 minutes back there behind closed doors where no one else gets to see. And it's literally the way we live. It's the way we're engaging with our life, because all of that is actually going to directly influence what does happen behind closed doors in the bedroom. So, and to live a very sensually engaged, pleasure-filled life, first of all, it just increases the quality of life moment to moment, and it connects us into beauty of all forms. In every single moment we are surrounded by beauty. There's always something either within us or around us that we can acknowledge and enjoy feeding our senses through the pleasure of that beauty, whatever that is. So this is more of a way of life. It's more of a daily moment-to-moment practice. And then that is what we take in the bedroom. That along with all kinds of other multifaceted areas of ourselves. Sexuality is so potent in that way where it has the ability to bring forth like all of who we've been, all of where we've come from, all of who we are now, and like all of who we're becoming and stepping into, and then to share that in a moment of connection, intimacy, and union with another. It's so powerful, so beautiful. And ultimately, I think one of the reasons I'm so fascinated by the topic is that the topic of power in general is a big topic of interest for me. And so I've been doing healing work and spiritual guidance with people for about 22 years. And from what I can tell, from my understanding of the healing path, is that it's really a path of reclaiming our power. Getting really clear of all the ways that we've relinquished power, mostly unconsciously. Getting really clear of all the ways that we've, abandoned ourselves, dishonored ourselves, devalued ourselves, disrespected ourselves, betrayed ourselves. I mean, it really, power is, and the healing path, it's really about that reclamation. And I'll just say that in my own personal viewpoint, as a species of humanity, until we are ready to fully engage with this part of ourselves in a way that's healthy and balanced and healing and positive and transformative and awakening and enlightening and empowering, until we are ready to fully engage with this part of ourselves and this part of life, we will not be able to access our full power and potential as a species. That is how important I feel this topic really is. And so I'm going to stop there because I see some people have joined, and I just want to open the floor and see if either one of these people have a topic or a question or area of interest that they'd like to, kind of in a sense, like play that card. And we could see where we go from there. No pressure. I'm fully prepared to just talk about things and share. But because the whole purpose of why I created this call was to actually engage with you, I just want to take a moment to invite anybody forward if they have anything they want to share. You could type it in the comments if you want. And if anything comes up at any point, you're welcome to do so. Just drop it in there. If nothing comes through, which then like right now, then I'm just going to keep rolling. And if anything wants to drop in, then go ahead. No pressure. You're welcome to engage. You're welcome to bring your voice forward. You're welcome to be a silent observer. There's no wrong way to do this here. Okay. This is just a journey of exploration. Yeah, I want to talk about that piece that I spoke to of sensuality and pleasure as a way of life. Because in order to feel happy, in order to feel grateful, in order to have fun, we actually need energy for all that. And it's really hard to be connected to that part of ourselves when we're tired. It's really hard, actually. And so part of why I want to start here is because we've inherited this system of lifestyle, the system of living that it wasn't built with our human needs in mind. It was built with like production in mind, which is clearly an important aspect of life, but it's an aspect of life that when combined with our human needs and done in certain ways, it has potential to be extremely like basically creating heaven on earth, but because it wasn't, the system of living that we've inherited wasn't created with that in mind, and because ultimately, because humanity is never fully, in all of our recorded history, humanity has not yet fully owned its power. So when you have the potential of power, which is significant that we as a species have, but when it's dampened from not actually being able to express that potential, and in fact, it's not only dampened, it's just straight up like twisted and warped into expressions of power that when you have that twisted, distorted power and then the focus on productivity, it creates a lifestyle of imbalance. And so in a world of imbalance, and I mean, ultimately, we've seen that over our entire recorded history shows that. Not only does it show that, but it shows that for our entire recorded history, human beings have been suffering from severe mental illness. Severe. Happy, healthy humans don't do the things that our history and to present day experience shows that people do to each other. Yeah, we've actually never been there in our recorded history, maybe at other points previous to that, but who knows? And the reason why I'm kind of zooming out to give this like meta perspective is because it greatly affects our day-to-day experience of life. Because within that day-to-day experience of our personal life, and if we are not connected to the need of self-care every single day, then we ultimately are going to exist within a life experience that's draining, depleting, exhausting, overwhelming. I mean, look at the amount of psychological problems people have in the world. You know, this is a big reason why. That in combination with, along with everything I'm saying, one of the basic human needs that the system of living we've inherited does not meet is a need for belonging and connection. So the reason why I want to start here with this topic is because it's really important. The benefit is that we also live in a world, if you're living in a Western modern world, where we have truly like more freedoms and more power than we ever had in our recorded history. So we have this opportunity right now to really empower ourselves, to step into a more role of being like a more conscious creator in our own lives, to create a lifestyle that really is going to meet our needs. Because when our needs are met, we're more likely to experience satisfaction and joy out of pleasure, intimacy, sensuality, sexuality, and relationships. This part is really, really, really important, and I just really can't stress it enough because, you know, especially, so I'm a single person and I live alone, and, you know, I can only imagine what it's like for mothers, you know, who are just wearing so many hats every single day. And because our system of living is the nuclear configuration instead of being more communal, you know, the the heavy lifting that mothers do every single day is immense. And so like mothers are the true warriors of life, and like every day needs to be Mother's Day. For that reason and so many more, they are literally the people portals for all humans that's ever existed. So it's pretty significant. But we need to take better care of our mothers. There needs to be a lifestyle inset that helps to take care of mothers and women in general. So like even women who aren't mothers, most women menstruate every month. And this is a whole other, like, kind of, again, I'm just dishing up some of the meta perspective first, because it's definitely an influence and it's important to be aware of. And again, it's important to couple it with the empowerment and the freedom and the availability and the independence that we have at this time in history to really grab on to our own creative potential and put that into our life in the way that's really truly going to serve us and help us live a happy, healthy, fulfilling life, right? And so this is a whole other area where it's like women are bred to have a very negative relationship to their menstrual cycle, let alone, so relationship to the cycle, but we are not educated at all on what it really means to take care of ourselves during that time, body, mind, spirit. And so on a body level, I think most women are actually depleted before they go into motherhood because of the negative relationship that they've had to their moon cycle their whole life leading up to it. And because they've never known that it's important to take care of themselves at that time, let alone like actually how, like what does that really need in order to protect, maintain, preserve a woman's vitality. When the woman's happy, everyone's happy. It's like probably the most simple equation of all time. But then at the same time, like so many things in life, it's extremely complex. Like there's a paradox, right? So like all the great truths and the great questions of life, they're all held within this paradox, right? So when the woman's happy, everyone's happy. It's the most simple truth. But on that flip side, it's also so complex, you know? And this is like the burning question for like all men everywhere is like, what makes a woman happy? How can I make her happy, you know? So that's why I'm starting here, because again, part of my work is to help educate and share with people, help kind of like expand our definition of how we relate to these topics of pleasure, intimacy, and sensuality in our own life. You know, like oftentimes one thing people are looking for more of in their connection with their partner is a deeper sense of intimacy. And my work personally, the way that I work for myself and the way that I work with my clients, it's always about start with oneself. Where are the topics of sensuality, pleasure, and intimacy in my own connection to myself, in my connection to my moment-to-moment lived experience, in connection to just with the feeling of like connection to my life? Do I feel an intimate connection there? Because again, these are all things that we kind of they're all kind of coalesced, and it's part of what comes through and gets exposed and shared and revealed with another when we are sharing intimacy on any level with another person, especially sexually. So that's why I just think it's really, really important that if these are areas of life that we want to experience more satisfaction and positive energy from, we have to start with ourselves and just, be honest with ourselves. Take a really good look at where are all the ways that I am leaking my life force. Like if you were to imagine yourself as a container, a vessel of life, because that's what you are. You are a vessel of life. So you're like a container, and so if you imagine, you can kind of do a scan and just and within that container is like all areas of yourself. And it's kind of also what creates the integrity of the structure of the container, and just taking a good look at where am I feeling depleted? Where am I feeling overburdened? Oftentimes when I do this work with people, quite honestly, there's a combination happening. At the same time, in the same space, there's a depletion and there's an overburdening, like there's an overstuffing happening of the container. And part of being in these bodies, so this body is the physical container of our life force, our vitality, and this is like body, mind, spirit all comes together and expressed through the body. So we have limitations just like our physical bodies do, and it's super important that we respect our limitations, because when we respect our limitations, we actually can max out on the shape of our container. Meaning that the integrity of a container, it's solid, sealed, tight, and it's very well maintaining our life force energy. And from there, with intention and devotion and commitment, that's where we can really channel that energy and create in different areas of our life. And so there's not only the container of oneself, but in topic of sexuality that is involving another person, their whole container of their own. And then you've got the container of the relationship itself. And so then it starts getting really, really like the level of nuance and complexity gets really, really heightened because of all the energy that's now inhabiting that one container. And I want to stop really quick and ask if, is this a good time if anybody has anything that they want to bring forward? If you want to, in a sense, lay a card down, have us be able to take a look at it, just put it on the table and we can just look at it together and discuss, feel free to do so now or anytime. You can type it in the comments if you like, if you have a specific topic or question that you're curious to explore more, or if there's something that you specifically would want to hear me speak about, feel free to just type it in the comments. And I'm sorry if anybody hears the background noise happening. There's apparently some kind of construction happening nearby. Hopefully it's not distracting. Okay. So it's a really, really common desire for people to experience a greater sense of fulfillment in these areas in connection with another person. So these areas being sensuality, pleasure, intimacy, and sexuality in the relationship. And so for me, again, because like the way I see it is that the place to start is not actually in the bedroom with the door closed. It's not in that direct moment of sexual experience with another. It's actually outside the bedroom, and it's within all of the moment-to-moment dynamics of interactions that happen throughout every day. And so I feel like one of the reasons why I have a unique perspective to offer on these topics is because I've been trained in Chinese herbal medicine. And so the topic of the balance of yin and yang, of feminine and masculine energies, it heavily influences my own personal lens that I'm viewing these topics through, and just life in general. And so if I had to distill all of life down into like what creates various outcomes in all aspects of life, it's ultimately the balance of the masculine and feminine forces of life. Because when that balance is struck, that's when the magic happens. That's when our powers as creative beings gets turned on, and that is when we create, and it's beautiful, it's harmonious, it's pleasurable, it's celebratory. It's the dream. It's what we all, it's what most people want, you know. It's striking that balance. The challenge is that we're different every day. So every day is like we're constantly looking for how to strike that balance within a context of life that is always changing. So again, the way life works here on Earth is like, to me, it's fascinating, but it's like the paradox, right? Of where it's both things in the same space at the same time. And so, but sometimes with just like having greater understanding and self-awareness and how we are affecting things, you know, we really can make significant differences in this area and any area of life when we are, first of all, really clear on all that is within the masculine energy of life and all that's in the feminine. I think there's, in my experience of being in the communities of holistic healing arts and spirituality, I'll say that there's a significant misunderstanding of what the masculine and feminine energies are, what they represent. So if we're not even really understanding what they represent, it's hard to take it further and then understand, okay, and where am I within all of it? How am I using my creative power of choice to create this outcome or that outcome? It's really important to look at the outcomes we create and take a good look at ourselves and like see where did we contribute to an imbalance, because it's all about learning. It's all just about learning and growing and potentially healing, transforming. But for, you know, it's just a very, very common quest that people are on, is greater sense of fulfillment in their intimacy that's shared with their partner. And so, again, for me, this topic starts outside the bedroom. It's like, well, examine what the qualities of intimacy are in the kitchen, cleaning the house, running the errands, managing all the logistics. You know, that's a big one, actually. That's actually, managing logistics, I think, is one, especially for women, that really, really affects their level of availability and interest in this area of life with their partners. I'll circle back around to that in a little bit. But yeah, just taking a look at like, where is there balance and imbalance? It's really easy to hyper focus on where the imbalances are happening. So just my suggestion is that if you are going to engage with this process with your partner, that you really do what's needed to not only get clear of what the imbalances are, but get really clear of what the balances are too. And make sure you bring that in to the process and like put that kind of like front and center of like, this is what works. Like, I love this. Like, in this, I am so happy. I am so fulfilled. I feel so taken care of. I feel so loved, so appreciated. It's super important to bring that stuff front and center, because it's really easy to get hyper focused on all the areas where things are imbalanced. And all I'm saying is that if a person tries to engage their partner with what's balance and imbalance in this area of their life, and if only the imbalances get highlighted, it's just going to add further complications and sensitivities to a topic that's already, for most people, pretty loaded with complications and vulnerabilities and sensitivities, right? So, and you know, it's important that when we engage our partner in these ways and on these topics of balance and imbalance, that we remember that we do so as if we're a team, you know, to like, we're in partnership with this person, right? Ideally, you're a team. And and the relationship is like a collaborative art project that you are designing and building together, literally with every moment of interaction that you share. So, you know, it's just really important to stay connected to that stuff, because that's going to be more supportive to a couple as they go into, if they do decide to engage in a process around balances and imbalances, especially in this area of life. It's going to be really important that it's done in a way that makes everybody involved feel like I'm part of a team. We are connecting on a mutually agreed upon importance that we both want to devote ourselves to. Because without that, then it's really easy for that sense of team, being like a team player, it's really easy for that to get lost, and it's really, really hard, impossible perhaps, to progress in this topic with your partner if that's the foundation that you guys are trying to navigate with. Okay. So once again, I just want to take a pause. Does anybody here have any topics or questions that they would like to bring forward, and type in the comment section, and we could just kind of throw that in the conversation and just kind of take a look at things and, you know, see where that goes. You're welcome to do so. The whole point of why I wanted to do this call was to really engage with you here to look at this area of life. And my greatest goal would be to, you know, share on topics that are of meaning and importance and interest to you. You know, I could talk about this stuff a lot, but I don't know. I'd be most interested to speak directly to what is up for you regarding these topics. So I just, again, want to invite you to contribute if you have anything to share in that way. And I don't need to say names of who brings what forward. You know, you could do so and know that, I mean, I don't know if it shows up in the feed, how that works, but as far as I'm concerned, I'll do it in a way that's anonymous for you. And I'm going to take a drink of water real quick, or drink of tea. For instance, living in a way that's sensually and pleasurably fulfilling for me has to do with nutrition, ways I take care of myself, and how to make it beautiful. Like this herbal tea, this iced herbal tea, and, in a wine glass, where I'm like, I'm going to do it in a wine glass instead of a regular glass because it makes it a little bit more fancy, a little bit more fun. And what am I going to do? Like I said, I'm single and I live alone. Like, am I going to wait to enjoy this part of life until I'm like in partnership with someone? Do you know how rare it is for me to be in partnership with someone? No. So it's little things like this where it's like, this is my way of getting to celebrate it and honor it and have fun with it and play with it in my own life. It's the same with like buying flowers and like, laying around on a weekend evening in a really beautiful lingerie and, just like nice smelling things and, all these ways that I take care of this part of myself. 'Cause I like this part of myself and I like this part of life. And I'm not just gonna I'm not going to tell myself some story as if I need to wait until I'm with somebody to enjoy it. And maybe that's where I'll leave off from here, actually. That's a good segue, a good way to continue on with this whole topic. One sec. All right. Okay, yeah. So, like, that is an example of, sensuality and pleasure, intimacy. It's a way of life. It's similar to like, imagine how it would be to hear someone say, thank you. Imagine how it would be to hear someone say, I so desperately want to be spiritually enlightened, but I only want to feel that way when I'm sitting down at my altar and meditating. In all other areas of life, I don't need that, but only in those 20 minutes is when I feel like I really need to feel spiritually enlightened. Like, how do I feel spiritually enlightened in those 20 minutes, and it's kind of silly, right? It's a similar kind of thing where it's like, well, that's one way to do it. But why not just bring that into your moment, everyday lived experience? And look, I'll say that it takes some effort, like creating new habits always takes effort. As somebody who, I might be one of the most disciplined people you'll ever come by. Discipline for me is like super sexy. I love discipline. And even for me as somebody who like, I'm always engaging with this process around like assessing the current level of discipline and, is it still helpful for me? Is it still what I need? Because I'm always changing and what I did 5 years ago isn't the right thing for me today. So it's like always engaging with this process of like, it's a constant refining, constant tweaking. And for someone like me who's really like comfortable with that part of myself, it still is really hard to build in new patterns of living, and so my suggestion is start small. Pick a way that you can easily bring something, a new pattern into your life that supports you in these ways, in these areas of sensuality and pleasure and intimacy into your life. And when I say intimacy and I'm referring to oneself and their life, meaning what are the moments that make you feel connected to yourself? What are the moments that make you feel connected to your life? Is it being in nature? Is it enjoying some kind of creativity? It could be so many things, but intimacy with oneself and one's life, it's like people, this comes up a lot with the topic of spiritual development when I'm guiding people in that area of life. And, it's similar. And what I'll say is like, intimacy is about a relationship. And like any relationship that is significant and meaningful and important to you, you need to make time for it. You need to hang out with it and you need to talk to it. And so it's like that with ourselves too. And so if we're not giving ourselves time for that intimate connection to ourselves, and at the same time we're feeling like we wish we were more connected to ourselves, like that's a good indicator to spend some more time, some more one-on-one time, you know. Okay, so I feel like I've said a lot on that whole facet of this extremely multifaceted aspect of life. So I want to move on because, you know, there's other aspects to talk about too. So where to move on to? Anyone want to throw something down? All right. Okay, so coming back to the topic of power and the healing path and sexuality. So again, and this is just my opinion, my perspective, and it greatly influences how I live and how I work with other people. Sexuality is the most powerful part of our lives. It's the most powerful part of ourselves. Think about it. Our sexuality is responsible for all of human history and everything in it for all of time. It all happened because we have genitals, and when we do certain things, we create a human. And if we're not creating a human with the energy of that, we're creating our lives. So it's literally created all aspects of human experience everywhere for all time. It's pretty significant. And the healing path and power, like I was saying, so the healing path, in my perspective, is about reclamation of power. It's about gathering up all the ways that we've ultimately disempowered ourselves. Or if, you know, children are a different thing, you know, because children they're not in a position in themselves to be empowered to make their own choices as much, right? Because they are at the will of the adults in their life. And so, you know, a lot of us come from childhoods that in one way or another disempower us. And then our healing path out of that is reclaiming our power from just all the many moments that most of us experience in childhood where our power gets taken away. But we grow into adults, and then we perpetuate cycles of disempowerment through subconscious patterns that we bring forward into connections, either with ourselves or other people, that create a continual cycle of disempowerment. And part of the whole healing journey, part of what that's about, is giving the time and the space to understand, where have I disempowered myself, and where do I need to go and do some cleanup work on that for myself? Where do I need to go and do some cleanup work with that regarding, you know, this other person? And that's one reason why relationships are so significant, is because they ultimately are gonna be it's a very powerful mirror for where we play out our subconscious patterning, you know. And I do really believe heavily in this quote that says, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. So if we're playing it out in a relationship, it's most likely that we're playing it out to ourselves as well. But the relationship, that dynamic, that mirror for the dynamics to get played out. It's a very, very strong mirror because, you know, we have an opportunity within that to really do some deep work and looking at ourselves where we contributed to a loss of power in ourselves and in the connection. And so, you know, it's interesting. I'm always fascinated by like the topics around like for people who, for one reason or another, have a block in their sexual energy, in either the way that they experience it for themselves or the way that they experience it with their partner. This is like one facet of this very complex topic for me personally that I get really fascinated on, because it's a facet that really there's no end to how nuanced and complex it is, because of how like it's so, each one of us like so uniquely experiences it in our own life, depending on our history and, you know, our patterning, and not only in this life, but what we even have inherited ancestrally through our family line that really influences this part of ourselves. And then, you know, influences from childhood, like communities, and, you know, there's so much that goes into it, but I'm always really fascinated by what is it that shut the person down from this aspect of themselves, you know? I think a lot of times there's pain. When I say pain, I mostly mean like psychological pain, but there is also physical pain. I mean, people do experience pain with sex, physical pain with sex. It's interesting though, because even that, so I've been in Esther Perel's, she has a training that I've been in for the last like almost 2 years now. And they did this whole piece on vulvodynia, which is, vaginal pain during sex. And it was all about, you know, so it was a very strong example of how people experience physical pain, but the root of the physical pain is actually psychological. It's not physical. That does not undermine the importance of it, or the fact that that's not to say like, so it's all in your head. The body and mind are connected. One common misunderstanding when people talk about the mind and where the mind is located in the body, they typically think it's up here with the brain, but the mind it pervades the entire physical being. In a classical tantric worldview, the mind actually is literally the entire field of experience, both internally and externally. Because in that non-dual perspective, there's actually no difference between the internal self and that external self. And we have this body with these sense organs that is like basically a layer of perception that is filtering data that's coming in and data that's coming out. But it's ultimately one giant feedback loop of consciousness, and through that consciousness, creativity of every single moment. But anyways, the Western mind, that's a little too out there for like the Western mind to really wrap its head around. So, you know, it's enough just to understand that the body and the mind is actually inhabiting every single aspect of our physical being, including our hair, fingernails, elbow, eyebrow. So, you know, to have a psychological root of physical pain actually makes a lot of sense to me. And, you know, but then there's other aspects too. There's like, are people not connected to that part of themselves because, again, going back to that topic of balance and imbalance in the relationship, is there an imbalance happening in some way that makes one or both partners feel disconnected from that part of themselves and from sharing it with the other person? I need to stop and take another drink. 1 sec. so that oftentimes can be a huge contributor. I have one person in my life who's experienced a lot of loss at a very young age, losing both parents at a very young age. And she is a person who is not connected to this part of herself and to sharing it in her relationship with her partner. And I kind of wonder if one of the deeper influences there is a fear of loss, a fear of, getting so close to somebody, letting somebody in that deeply, and then losing them, I think there's just so many different reasons of why people would feel disconnected to this part of themselves, to their sexuality, to pleasure and intimacy and sensuality, and how they experience it in their intimacy and relationships with another. And it's one reason why, and I so hope for like the evolution of humanity, like I mentioned before, like previously, like I really don't think humanity's ever gonna evolve to its full potential without fully engaging with this part of ourselves, with our sexuality. It's the most powerful part of us, And if we are not healthy and balanced in that aspect of ourselves, which is like the ultimate ground of where the masculine and feminine dynamics play out, like if we're not in a balanced, healthy, positive relationship with that, like how are we ever as a species going to evolve into our full potential? I don't see that happening. I don't think that's possible. But I do hope for our world that we eventually acknowledge the fact that we have genitals and that not only is that a very pleasurable, intimate, sensual part of ourselves, it's an access point for ourselves for very, very deep healing work. So in Chinese herbal medicine, our genitals is connected to our system of the kidneys and adrenals. And the way the Chinese perspective sees it is that the health of the child is directly determined by the health of the two parents when they have sex, the moment of conception. And then certainly it's greater influenced by the whole term of pregnancy and the birth, and then once that baby is born, and then everything that happens on the other side of that birth is a continual influence to the health and vitality of a little human, and eventually a big human. And so the kidneys and adrenals rule our reproductive health. They rule our sexuality. And part of why that's true is because through our genitals, it's where we pass all of the data of who we are. It's the genitals is the access point of all the data of who we are, where we came from, not only in our life, but in our ancestral line. So it's ancient how far it goes back, actually. But you can kind of bring it into, you could just even work with like the last few generations or whatever, do some researching in your family, ask some questions, and start to get a better idea of the state of health and well-being of people and relationships that were happening in your family. Most likely it wasn't all that great because human life on this planet was really, really hard. For God, it's only been within the last few hundred years, really just like a blink of an eye of things becoming more humane. But anyhow, I'm getting off topic. genitals. So this is the access point that we transfer all of who we are and where we come from, where we connect that to the same access point on another person, and it comes together in a certain way and creates another human, to imbue that little human with all the data from both parents. And so the genitals, outside of the topic of childbirth and reproduction, the genitals are the strongest access point for healing work in our whole body. That's how I feel about it. Yeah, I guess I hope for a world where we get to actually more outwardly connect on the fact that we have genitals, and there is extremely valuable healing work that could be done for people in that area of their body that is, like I said, it's a very potent access point to all the different layers of complexity that make up a person, and all of what influences if we are connected to our sexuality, our sexual energy, if we're connected to a sense of pleasure and sensuality, and if we're not, and it creates a very powerful access point for understanding, like, if not, then why not, to start exploring that. Actually, I'm realizing I'm going to do a time check really quick. Oh, it's been almost a full hour already. Okay. Actually, I gotta wrap this up because it's just gonna cut off in a few minutes anyways, because I'm reaching the hour-long duration. So, told you guys I have a lot to talk about on this topic. So I think, what this tells me is like, yeah, I should just start doing live videos about this topic more. And so I'm going to close. Okay, actually, you know what? I'm just going to plant a little seed, because I feel like where I was just about to go was going to be a really fun topic. And so just FYI, where I'm picking up with this in my next call, next time I do this, on the topic of genitals, I want to share some information and guidance for couples of how to give really pleasurable, sensual experiences for their partner. Not necessarily for that deeper kind of healing work. I don't think that we should rely on our partners to take care of that part for us. It's going to happen kind of naturally in partnerships, I think. But I think that that's why there's trained professionals that people go to hold that kind of space. But still, for pleasure and sensuality and intimacy, there is some information I would like to share to help inspire and guide couples on how to give to each other in this way. All right. Thank you so much for everybody who, thank you. Thank you so much for everyone who came to be here on this call. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it immensely. I hope this was helpful and inspiring in some way, and I wish you all a beautiful rest of your Friday. Thank you so much, and please like this video and share it if you want to. And also, I have lots of content to engage with on my social media and my website, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon. Thank you.